I'm Eugenia Kemble with the Albert Schenker Institute. One of the things that you said initially was that the teacher is the most important factor in a child's education. It's the most important school-related factor. And one of the problems with some of the systems that are now being put forward, and I haven't read the report, so I don't know the degree to which this is put forward as the answer, that try to relate teaching to student test score performance, is that we don't have the metric to truly do that. And the reason I say this is because we have, and you've praised the Obama administration and you implied that Al Schenker would be supporting what Obama is doing now. I have grave doubts about that. If you look at the responses that have gone in on Race to the Top about the quality of those metrics from people like Dan Koretz at Harvard, Paul Barton, who was at ETS, Helen Ladd from Duke, Dick Murnane from Harvard, these people are saying that you cannot use the current assessment that we have as a way of evaluating teachers. Now, I know you haven't done individual teacher evaluation with assessments in New York, and you've got a school-based plan, and the union agreed to that, and I do credit you for that. But I think when you make these remarks, you have to distinguish between these plans, because the politics right now is to measure individual teachers by student performance.
Well, so let me answer in two ways. I do think, by the way, if the basic ideas I've just discussed in Alf Schenker's 1993 Pew Forum speech actually lays all of this out. It's a hard speech to find, but it's in there, including saying if we're not prepared to make the transformative changes that we're currently talking about, and he talks about a very strong school-based pay for performance, but tied to test scores and value added. And he ends up by saying if we're not prepared to do that, he believes that the public education system is going to go the way of the auto industry. It's a really remarkable speech if you haven't seen it. And if you can't find it, I'll be happy to send it to you. Just let my office know. But I'll answer you in two ways. I don't think that the current tests are fully adequate to the job, and I think we need better tests. But I do think, and I think from my work in New York, I can see this. I look at teachers who have the same mix of kids, and their third grade scores, let's just say, are on average 2.5 out of a 4-point scale. And I see a teacher with the same size class, with 25 kids, move a kid from 2.5 on average to 2.8, moves the whole class up 0.3 of a point. And I see another one move it down 0.3 of a point. I think that's a significant difference, and indeed, I think my kids think it's a significant difference. If I were to publicize that information, parents would be affected by it. Now, I don't want to say that's the only thing that matters. That's why I think peer review by master teachers who are widely recognized in the field is important to this. I also think we need better assessments. But I don't think we should use the excuse that because we don't have perfect assessments, we cannot do value-added evaluations of teachers as part of a comprehensive reform. And I do think if people oppose the current method, we need another method that distinguishes excellence. Right now, money flows based on length of service. Whether the teacher is spectacular or whether the teacher is going through the motions. And when money flows that way, you do not create an environment where excellence is the key driver. And teacher excellence is what we're all about. Go ahead, Charlie.
Joel, I want to ask, how do you take the international, you mentioned the PISA findings, how do you use those in your work? Do they resonate with people as you make these arguments? Because what you're basically trying to do is to change a set of incentives, change a set of expectations, and change the culture. And part of your message has been, if we don't get it, we're going to be overtaken by competition abroad. I find the PISA and other international comparisons quite motivating. Is that your experience as well?
I think it depends what you mean. I hate to carp about an adjective when you say quite motivating. I think they have an impact on people's thinking, but I don't think people really believe that these educational issues, that the fact that America's performing in the mid-20s in math and science, that, somehow because of our entrepreneurialism or somehow because of other issues, we will circumnavigate these problems long-term. So I don't think people perceive the urgency, Charlie, that I certainly perceive and believe is going on. And I also think in an environment, certainly in the next several years, where resources are going to be tight. School districts throughout America, even with the stimulus package, thank goodness this administration put in place, school districts are going to be facing tough choices. As we speak, there are school districts going through layoffs, including here in the District of Columbia. How you lay people off. Think about this. You lay people off by the last in, the first out. So I've spent an enormous amount of time recruiting teachers, making sure that we could bring the best we could to New York City, raising salaries and so forth. But if in fact I have to do layoffs, the ones that would have to leave are those that I've spent all this time recruiting. We need to think differently about those challenges. We need to think of how we spend a limited pool of money in a way that induces outcomes we want. And I'm not suggesting either it's easy or that there'll be a unanimity of views about it. But I think the report is right to say that if we don't do this in a big way, we're missing a big bet. Gentlemen.
Bruce McLaury from CED. The economics of this case that you have made and that CED is making seems to be self-evident. The politics of how we get from where we are to where we could be and must be is not self-evident to me, given the barriers that we know of in the political field. Do you have any, having fought the battles yourself, is there any advice that you can give us other than exhortation to do the best we can of how the battle should be fought politically, not in terms of the logic?
So when I say do the best you can, I think, look, there are people in this room who are in the media who can comment on these issues. There are people in this room who are in business who are dealing all the time with people on the Hill. I think the President and the Secretary have laid these issues out, and not surprisingly, there's been pushback, but they're going to need the support. And I think they have a very, very creative and, in my view, thoughtful strategy, which is to create a race to the top. In tough economic times, you take $4.35 billion and you say to states, those of you who really come in with significant, aggressive reform agendas that deal with the 4 issues that the President laid out in his speech earlier this year, you'll get the big bucks. And if you can do that and maintain the political will to do that, then I think we'll see the kind of results that we want to see. But again, when people talk to senators, talk to Congress people, talk to the administration, it's important that they prioritize these issues. Because, and I don't mean this critically, if I have to defend a certain status quo, if my members say, if I say, well, I'm going to support differentiation among one kind of teacher from another, those are my members. And if I also say I want to move money from the back to the front, some people are going to be a little better off, some people are worse off. But in order to have those things, which I think are necessary, take place, I think people from the business community, from the educational communities, and really, I think increasingly, bold labor leaders. I mean, I had my share of fights with Randy Weingarten when she was at the UFT. She's now the president of the AFT. But we got a lot of pay for performance and differential pay done during the years, more than maybe some people in New York would have liked, less than I would have liked. But, we have 3 or 4 different programs. And I think with the leadership, in my view, there's no substitute for leadership at the top. And I will just say, I think the President and the Secretary are there, and I think if the rest of us continue to put the pressure on, we have a shot here. All right. Thank you very much.